African politics, our disaster of all times. We go to the common people. I know I'll be very unpopular for this. I'll be very unpopular for this, but I'll say it. We go to the common people in the bush who can't read, who can't write. And we ask them to choose a president for us, who don't even know what kind of qualities do we need to achieve and solve the problems that we have. At the end of the day, we end up having loud politicians, poor implementers, because we think that slogans are equivalent to development. I could be a silent engineer, but I'm able to build a road.
Yeah.
You can be a loud politician who can't even fix a door. How often in Africa do we go to find a teacher and make him the Minister of Infrastructure Development? You go and find a nurse and you go and make them the Minister of Tourism. And you crisscross these skills. What you need is a set of skills for a specific task. And I think that if Africa could begin to move to a meritocratic, which is appoint by merit and qualification of task, would move much faster.
What is your take on Botswana, the people of Botswana? What has been your little summation of type of people they are?
What makes Botswana very important to me and put the country on the map was the research on human civilization and origins. And then you would meet up with the Aborigines up in Australia and the Pacific Islands, the Tongas. You get into the Hadzabe people in Tanzania. Hottentots in the basins of Congo. But most importantly, you also come to talk about the Bushmen, the Koisan, in the south.
Yes.
And when you follow the history of the Koisan in the south, they are responsible for the first form of writing for us in the south, as opposed to the hieroglyphics in the Great Pyramids of Giza and other pyramids, where the writings of the Koisan are visible from as far up north as Tanganyika, into Kenya, into Zambia, Great Zimbabwe, all the caves coming right down into Botswana here, Namibia, parts of Angola, and down into the ocean in the Cape Town space. And then you would find, as it is always, that the African scholars come in late. But academically speaking, Botswana plays a very critical role in that we actually have a civilization that is on extinction in our own very eyes. Where at one time I was almost about to start a protest that can we just leave them alone? Like secure their survival the way they've been living with their wild animals and because in there is a science of life, it's medicine, it's moon trekking, it's a whole cosmology. It's another civilization away from what we are now calling civilization. And in the midst of us trying to put clothes on them, injections, sending them to school and etc. There are good things in that, but there's more wrong in that. Now we know that even if you're educated, if the bush can't heal you, if you can see where the wind is going, if you can tell the animal that has walked here, how educated are you? So Botswana for me plays that critical part. Botswana and Namibia, because we still have quite a number of families that are roaming freely. And when President Genkop, may his soul rest in peace, was still alive, that's one of the issues that I picked up with him. Actually, I took it very personally because I had walked past those places. And I said to him, what kind of a revolution can you say you're running? And if your armies, there's Namibian armies and Botswanan armies, you're hunting these people, shooting them from Botswana side and from Namibia side. And these people are supposed to enjoy even the freedom itself. So yes, your freedom and your understanding of territories becomes so severe that you'll even disturb the... Have you not become the colonizer yourself? You know, Genko was a big...
Yes.
He loved... But he had me.
Yeah.
A few weeks later, literally 1.5 weeks later, he called the president of Botswana. They met in Uppington, some quiet place somewhere there. They discussed, and next thing I hear that the borders between Namibia and particularly for those nations had been cancelled. And it was a celebration which did not appear on your newspapers.
Yes.
It was just no IDs, but the real underlying issue, why I picked up that issue was specifically to speak to the indigenous organic people. So Botswana for me still holds that, and I hope the Minister of Arts and Culture could be able to hear what I'm saying. I hope the President can hear what I'm saying. That yes, let's move on with development, but there are some things that we don't need to develop. And things like indigeneity, and that we actually house one of these cultures and people amongst us. They deserve every amount of preservation that we would need. In the future, we will need this history. We will need this. Should the whole town burn and all these plants rust, the solution of our survival is in the knowledge of the herbs and the plants which those people still have. So, and it's unfortunately when knowledge goes away, it goes away with its people. And Botswana is very important to the ecology of the African knowledge system.
So how do you then contest the thinking that leaving the San, the Hadzabe tribe, and all these ancient tribes in their own lifestyle, like in Botswana, there are still those that are still hunter-gatherers, in Namibia as well. And there are those that think we are being unfair and being very cruel, leaving them to still hunt, to still live wearing, you know, they call it half naked in the Western books. How would you challenge those? Because indeed, those are still very much in existence in parts of Africa.
The arrogance of civilization thinks that everyone wants to look like it. And when you find people that are living their lives, you are judging them through your own eyes. You're not being honest. I call that maybe it's academic dishonesty, or it's cultural dishonesty. Because should the American come right here and force all of us to become Americans, we revolted against same-sex marriages on the basis that you are telling us to adopt a culture. We're not saying homosexuality is new amongst us, but don't force it and make it policy. There are bigger issues that we're dealing with here, issues of land, issues of health, issues of... And for you to zoom into a non-significant issue and make it priority, it's not important. Should the African also stand up where he is right now and force the American to become African? The Koisan men walking up to Britain and say, be British, I'm going to circumcise all your children. Of course, the whole city will be up in arms. You will start a civil war.
These savages.
With nothing to do with your culture, that kind of thing. So, so I don't want us to become too presumptuous to a point of where we become arrogant in our academic conversation, that we think that we feel sorry for them. You don't feel sorry for anybody. They are feeling sorry for you. Here we are now suffering with all diseases that are Western driven. We no longer have children. We no longer have family. We are all just socializing on social media and etc. They sit in the evening, they dance around their fires, they can still read their stars, they follow the tracks of the animals, they are living. Who said that they need our sympathy? And again, that's a colonial parasite mindset, where a white person comes to an African and finds him, doing his own food, and says, no man, it's a better way of doing this. We've ended up in this rubbish of recycled GMO foods because they felt sorry for us. They felt sorry for us. And before we notice it, every story led to another story. Now to undo the whole process of sorry, it's a whole civilization and cultural overtake. Our culture has been overtaken. But how interesting that every time Botswana want to celebrate their culture, guess what they want to look like? Then we rewind.
We go back.
All of a sudden,
we wear the stuff.
All of a sudden, so are we saying that our culture is only good for dancing? That's all we want to remember ourselves. Then our people dance around, and after that, okay, forget about it. And I think that's a commercial way of looking at culture. If I was in Botswana here, I would actually block off those places, get the young people in town, once in a while, put them on boot camps, allow them to induct so that they can appreciate. Those are doctorates, academic doctorates of data.
Of life, yes.
Of data, which universities in the world have not yet tapped into. Those writings, I mean, I spend lots of time in caves, and I get into those caves and I look at their drawings. I don't call them drawings, they're writings. The herbs that they were harvesting, the animals that they were eating, the ceremonies that they were the tools that they were carrying. And you look at it, it's a whole encyclopedia of a previous life, but harvested into an art form. Now, if we just take them as pictures and walk away and say, well, here are the Bushman paintings, I think we miss the science of the paint that they used for writing there. 5,000 years later, 10,000 years later, those paintings are still as they were written yesterday. For me, how about we find how they manufactured that paint? If we could paint our buildings using that quality of paint, how will our buildings look another 5,000 years from now? So it's not just paintings. For me, I look at the science of the paintings, the technologies, the materials that are used, and it's all there within our environments in terms of our habitat. Someone was actually telling me you mix that blackberry, uvu, and with a bit of blood, and then some herbs that are on the ground to come up with that kind of a paint. Now,
that stands for hundreds of years, eh?
These are organic paints. These ones that we're using right now, they're full of methane and petrol and whatever, and they cause asthma and many other side effects. So we forfeit and we lose an opportunity to experience a deep culture that has preserved itself and its sciences, and we become like tourists in our own history.
Why are we, as Africans, you talked to the Prime Minister of Namibia, as you said, about, and now Botswana, Namibia, there's free, use just
Zimbabwe
IDs.
just joined us.
Yes, I know Juma just went there. We'll talk about Juma in a second. But why is there reluctance to capture that from an African point of view? I mean, we talk about the Hazebe tribe. The American universities are all over. I don't know if you're aware. Researching and lifestyles and to address their own issues.
The sieve that we were taught to use for academic purposes, it is too porous. It only picks up what the white man wants it to pick, and the rest of the information that is available falls into the cracks. We don't have academic institutions that have an interest in that. Two, we don't have corporates that are interested in investing into that. We don't have universities that actually have adopted that as part of curricula that could be studied. And you have history classes, but they are teaching Mussolini, they're teaching you the German wars,
the South,
and etc. So at the end of the day, you are in your country, you are an African, but the whole structure of you appreciating, learning, harvesting your indigenous knowledge systems and inculcating them into the lifestyle of the day and the science of the day, it's altogether missing. Now imagine when you don't respect the Khoi and the sun, the number of trees that they know in that language, the medicinal values of those trees, the water holes, predicting of seasons, movement of animals. Those are the best game rangers you can find for your tourism. Instead of walking people with guns and etc., here is a tribe that needs no gun, no bullet, no nothing. And they actually will tell you lions stay there, leopards are there, crocodiles are over there. The big heads have migrated north, south. 6 of them are sick. We can see from the cow dung. One of them is broken leg. We can see it's dragging on the floor. And for me to look around and say I'm educated, and yet this old man has 10 times more than I know, I take off my shoes. I take off my shoes in ignorance. Because then you've just met real education that is practical, implementable. So maybe one reason why we don't seem to capture it would be that we don't have the tools to do it. Next, we've been told it's barbaric, it's not important. And thirdly, even for us to be called qualified and educated, it does not include that. You cannot say you're educated and you know about the Khoi and the sun. But when they do it, oh hell, they get PhDs and 10 times around us. So I don't know how long it will take us to wake ourselves up from our own sleep and begin to put value where real value is.
Great. Now, I've heard you comment about I like it when you say young, because I can relate to young, and I also felt like maybe I'm young as well. Because he's my age. Yeah. But how do you see Duma? And within the context of what Botswana is going through troubled times. You just hit it in the middle of the dropping and serious decline in diamond sales, the economy tanking now for the third year. How have you assessed Duma as the president during tough times? It's
not even. I'll end up with Boko at the end. Let me start off with the plight of electing leaders. I've worked in the corporate space where we were selecting and appointing CEOs and directors in various organizations. It takes you time, 3 months, 6 months sometimes, doing CVs, checking profiles and references until you come up with shortlisting, and then you appoint. You never go to the people in the organization to say, can you choose for us who will be the best CEO? You don't go to employees to look for a CEO. It is the board of directors and shareholders who appoint who they want to protect their interests. Why am I giving such a boring illustration? Because at the end of the day, it is us, the board of directors and the trustees, who know what we want. We have our goals, we have our target markets, we know our weaknesses of the previous CEO. We are writing a new trajectory on where we want our business to go. Then we go shopping for a person who fits into what we want. If we say our margin, bottom lines are bad, we want more profits, or we want to do expansion, we want to do new re-engineering, we want to open new mines, then you look for a person who has got the skills, a set of skills to achieve the things that you want. African politics are a disaster of all times. We go to the common people. I know I'll be very unpopular for this. But I'll say it. We go to the common people in the bush who can't read, who can't write. And we ask them to choose a president for us, who don't even know what kind of qualities do we need to achieve and solve the problems that we have. At the end of the day, we end up having loud politicians, poor implementers, because we think that slogans are equivalent to development. I could be a silent engineer, but I'm able to build a road.
Yeah.
You can be a loud politician who can't even fix a door. How often in Africa do we go to find a teacher and make him the Minister of Infrastructure Development? You go and find a nurse and you go and make them the Minister of Tourism. And you crisscross these skills. What you need is a set of skills for a specific task. And I think that if Africa could begin to move to a meritocratic, which is appoint by merit and qualification of task, would move much faster. So what do you do as Botswana? You say, what are our problems? We need diversification. We need to develop businesses. We need to work on our legal systems. We need to re-improve our regional relationships. And for me, this goes into people like yourselves, where you must begin to do intelligent political education for your community in preparation for elections. Because it is that quality of conversation that informs the people, that for us to transform and move the country to where we want it to be, what kind of a person do we have? We are fortunate in Botswana here. Got a young man, and that makes him teachable and adaptable. Beautiful. You have a lawyer, so in terms of the discussions with De Beers and etc., readjustments of legalities around businesses, it's a space in which he's at home. It's his forte. And many other elements that could come around in this international footprint right now. He's got enough peers who are good encouragement to him. The likes of the Sahel, 3 musketeers there. That is, Traore and these 2 friends. They have a good friend that is coming up right now in Madagascar. That young man is also popping up.
He's the one who's shaking up the French.
He just kicked out the French the other day.
Yeah.
And for me, and I wish Boko can hear this, President Boko can hear this. Don't be afraid, President. Make them your friends. Create for yourselves as young leaders a forum where you can begin to rub on each other and learn from each other and grow together, because your failure is failure for all the young people that will ever have the old people will never trust young people ever again. So we have an opportunity, and Boko for me brings in fresh, not that is necessarily older, but a fresh,
I got you.
A fresh sense of patriotism, and he's not flying alone. And there's a major amount of developments that are happening, new dreams that are being spoken, visions that are being, diversification. I hear electricity is coming up in the deserts there.
Yeah.
I hear cities are going to be built in the desert there. And people say, hey, he's just dreaming. But we all are proceeds of dreams. It's mom and dad who dreamt of building homes. Are we not here today? We are here in the Grand Palm Hotel here. Was this not someone's dream? We're here in Dubai. We don't know someone's dreams. We're in Singapore. So at the end of the day, when people have no dreams, then why do you say there's no development? Because there's no one that can dream. And the fact that he has seen it, let us give him the hands to implement. And very true story. And this I will say it, and I want to underline it. Our Honorable President Mnangagwa last week met up with Duma in Zimbabwe, and they agreed that we no longer need, both of them, the speeches are there on media, we no longer need to have
passports,
we can use our own IDs. Now, the two presidents spoke and agreed. I flew in yesterday at the airport, and I said, I come here to qualify if what was said by the president is happening. But the lady was frank enough and says, we are not yet ready.
Yeah.
So there is a problem. That the vision of a leader
and the execution
of the vision is stuck in the bureaucratic system of colonized administration, where actually our own uncles and aunts who sit as directors and deputy directors and DGs in the departments are still crying. They want that stamp. If someone is coming in your country, they must stamp. So we have, and even Burkina Faso has got that problem where the bureaucratic middle class and all
holding the system when the president wants.
And for crying out loud, the beneficiaries of the French
for a long time
abuse, they build up their empires out of the corrupt deals with the French. Now here a young man comes and he wants to kick the whole thing upside down. Hell no, hell will break loose. You'll be assassinated by your own brothers and cousins. And I think Botswana could be safer, but one of our biggest problems actually could be the old guards who deem themselves the custodians
of the system.
And you ask them, whose system? It is the colonial system. They've won their awards, won their
the badges over time,
over looking after the white man's interests. And if you come around and you want to push that, they feel like the heavens are falling. Like you've just insulted them to tell us that we no longer need what? And when all they know is how to print and check if a passport is fake or it is true, and they don't know, we no longer need it. But of course, they must look at the typewriter in the light of the computer. A man who still wants to sell typewriters now, I think he belongs to the historical museum. It's no longer, it is expired. So
it's interesting because when President Masisi did the deal with Namibia using IDs, apparently, I didn't get the speech. He also pronounced that Zimbabwe is next, and there was a bit of an outcry.
The Zimbabweans will come here.
Joshua, but they will be coming here, left, right, and center. and I'm underlying the brevity of Duma. I mean, he probably knows that. But you got to look at the long term and see the bend. Yeah.
For Botswana, the advantage, you have 2.5 million people, 25 million people. In terms of scales of population, Zimbabwe is a brother.
Yeah.
In terms of skills transfer, Botswana can actually harvest the cream of what Zimbabwe has. But even better than that, the relationship of Botswana and Zimbabwe, in the absence of the Boer Wars, the Tswanas, we have the Tswanas in Zimbabwe, as much as we also have the Xhosas and the Ndebeles and the Zulus, and we also have the Kalangas, huge population of and the Vendas and the Tsongas
and the Sotos.
So you look at it from that angle, really. I don't think Zimbabweans will come here if the doors of opportunities are intelligently opened. You have built up a big reservoir here of engineers because of the mining houses that are here.
Yeah.
If we can move some of them into Zimbabwe to beneficiate the mines there with their skills, and get the Zimbabwean community employed there, who needs to travel anywhere? Because even when you come here, we don't want to stay here. It's slightly too hot for me. I would want to come here and make money, for sure. But immediately I have my money. I can tell you, and that's not good business, where someone just comes to your house to loot. And I'm sorry, I'm going to be very candid and open. And I know some people might not like what I say, but I'm not here to get stars. But it's not right that I come into your country and all I want is to grab and run.
Yeah.
And yes, I'm going to contribute a bit of taxes here and there. But ultimately, when you ask me under room temperature, I am actually waiting to hit a big deal and I hit the road. So how about if we create the environment where you can still make your money and go? But when it comes to really being patriotic, I think a regional strategy would protect us all. Where immediately when borders are open, you'll be shocked. People will flock into Botswana. They will buy from the shelves and go back home. They're not coming here to look for employment, etc., and work and be. Yes, you have those few rogue elements.
Yes, you have always in any society.
But if you look at your market value, if right now Botswana can say they get warehouses that are in South Africa into Botswana, good business strategy, by the way. Listen to me very carefully.
I'm listening.
Get the warehouses that are in South Africa into Francistown areas. Now that the borders are opened,
they're open,
you could actually find that Botswana could begin to make much more money through this, because the borders of South Africa are not friendly. So since this one is becoming friendly, you'd rather make yourself.
And then you have a corridor there in terms of Bulawayo.
Koisan is here. Bulawayo is over there. And actually, so
and Livingston is not too far.
It's a window of opportunity. And I think where good relationships are counting, we're able to harvest a good return.
I celebrate that. What is your take in terms of Kwame Nkrumah's philosophies and his compatriots around how the Africa should come together, and why we have been so overwhelmed by the Western education, the Western borders? I mean, we talk about Botswana, Zimbabwe, and Zambia. I mean, the bureaucracy at the borders when our people are poor. I mean, it's criminal.
And the white man is gone. It's brother to brother now. But they put a system there that we have to protect a legacy. I would want to throw you into China. China took 30 years with its doors closed to the international world. They bought machineries from Germany, yellow fleets from London, bought cars from Europe, and moved them into China, into their universities, into their industries. They told their engineers, break these things apart, break them apart, reverse re-engineering, create your own. By the time the Samsungs and the Apples came, Microsoft, it was too late. They became a manufacturing hub because they had mastered the art of how do you reverse your re-engineering, closing your doors from everybody, but allowing yourself to grow inside. Now look at the dangers of democracy. Democracy with this Roman Dutch law, which your presidents take vow to, binds them within the intellectual property laws. You can't do this. You can't do this. You must honor your contracts. And some of these contracts, for example, will tell you that you cannot produce a car in your country. Because we are going to be, Hyundai comes here and says, we are going to be assembling cars here. Therefore, you as a government, you cannot have an indigenous person coming up with a new car in this country because we've already built it to be a competitor against us. The government signs those things. They are put on the shelf for the next 50 years. South Africa, the same. South Africa produces military equipment, but they can't produce one car. Because BMW has got them under the neck, Mercedes-Benz, Toyota. So at the end of the day, you are going to consume what we assemble ourselves. And your innovation, we don't care. Now, when you have the governments that are stuck in those kind of relationships, this goes for manufacturing, this goes for mining. You got a contract with De Beers for the next 99 years, stuck. Generations after generations, stuck. You can't, because democracy is you must maintain and be honest to the contract. Now, what happens to a revolution? A revolution comes around and says, to hell with bureaucracy. To hell with all these protocols and etc. Kwame Nkrumah was slightly more radical than Julius Nyerere. This is where they clashed. When Nkrumah said, let's do the Africa unity now. Mwalimu, being a teacher, says, no, let's do it slowly.
The borders should stay.
Be slow at a time. Let's break ourselves into regions and we move. We're still moving slowly. But the revolution cannot be negotiated. And for 65 years now, we are still moving slowly. But as we begin to see the Sahel state coming together, 3 states in one, if we were smart enough, Botswana, Zimbabwe, Namibia, Zambia. We can come together. Also. Malawi and Mozambique is don't throw away. Leave South Africa alone. I'm serious. I'm serious. South Africa has got lots of wounds. They need to heal. Number 1. 2, even while they are healing, they have not fought yet. South Africa has not seen war. They've seen violence, but not war. War like we saw in Zimbabwe, where a country comes to a standstill. Schools are burnt to ashes. Hospitals not function. Roads are not working. Kids are carrying guns. People, the whole community, rape is rife. Soldiers are shooting, and we are there dragging our uncles into shallow graves, and we are being recruited to go and fight the battles in Mozambique. It's a different kind of thing. I've smelled death in the air. It's nothing I wish for anybody. But it looks like South Africa really want war. Because in the midst of their democracy, they've included too much diplomacy at the expense of the common people. And the common people are starting again to get restless over the meager resources that are available on the ground. So the Africa that I see is an Africa that must begin to look at the Chinese model and say, how do we close our doors to external influences, amalgamate our strength into a common space? Maybe for a start, let's start with one stock exchange in Africa for diamonds. Botswana, Lesotho, Namibia, Zimbabwe, whoever has diamonds, let's have our own, like the Arabs did with OPEC for fuel. All the Arab states came together. All those who do oil, come here, let's sit here. How many barrels? How many barrels? How many barrels? How many barrels? You don't do business with anybody. If they want to buy oil, they all come here and buy it OPEC price. So the whole Middle East oil deal is sealed because the seller has consolidated it into one package. The American then went in, they say, okay, the currency must use is our currency. But the prices are agreed. Now you look at diamonds and say, why not come up with a diamond? Bugger off those Americans. Bugger off the Dubaians. You are producing the diamonds. Come up with your own body. You can't have the kimberlite being determined somewhere else. Bring it here.
Europe,
And I'm looking at that from the agricultural sector. I'm looking at that from all of the minerals that we have in Africa. Ultimately, all these pieces put together, can that not give us one stock exchange in Africa? If one stock exchange is in place, can that not give us one bank? If one bank is in place, can that not give us one currency? Before we can even start talking about borders and people moving, people just think of chaos where people are just coming and carrying katundus. They call them katundus in Zambia. They're just carrying the mashangani bags. Just carrying katundus. We can begin to put the infrastructure together that creates the symbiosis in African economies. And we might be shocked that immediately we begin to do that. Monies and resources will begin to be distributed equally to the places as according to the resources. Zimbabwe, as of last week, first one in the whole of Africa to export lithium processed liquid.
Processed? They already started?
Last week.
Wow.
The first shipment went out. No more lithium goes out through that door. And I know this is a soft thing, but the next 2 years, they're saying no more even the liquid. We must produce the batteries here. Now, Botswana, you want to start a solar thing here.
Yeah.
And here, lithium is here. Across the road. So if I were you, Boko, I would be in China right now or in Germany getting lecturers who can come to University of Botswana and begin to teach my students how to manufacture these panels using the batteries that are nearby. This is the way the value chain comes into place. Where you and you young people also listen to me, young people. Stop looking for these stupid careers, man. Look where the government is going. Look where the regional politics is going. Look where the industry is going. And then position yourself there. Right now, I can tell you that the industries of electricity, power, engineering, construction are going to start booming. Because immediately when the economies are beginning to do well,
it's going to get busy. It's going to get busy. Baby.
And here you are getting a career in some little flimsy, little white collar. So get careers that are profitable and that marry your government strategy, and you'll be able to find yourself in a good space. So Africa must start looking for its limbs like a human body. Find where your hands are, find where your ears are, find where your eyes are. And this body sooner or later might want to start standing up and coordinating herself. That those who have oil like Angola, why must we be buying our petrol right now from Russia? 4,000, 5,000 kilometers away. Whereas you can just put a pipe between Luanda here, through the Chobe River, in Zambezi. Zambia, take yours. Botswana, take yours. Zimbabwe, take yours. Mozambique, take.
Where is SADC?
SADC is a toothless dog, man. I just see a beautiful building there. I don't know.
You know what I mean? We've been discussing these things. I'm like, there's supposed to be a body that's supposed to be facilitating.
If it was possible, I'll apply for a job there. Just give the vehicle is there, but it's always running up and down the street carrying no passengers. If you hear what I'm saying. Burning lots of fuel. We just see SADC. In the SADC, we don't even have a SADC bank. This is how sad it is.
I'm trying to look for deliverables. That, like you said, something tangible that...
We see the building. We see the building in the brochures. But we have not seen SADC doing developmental stuff, whether it is community-based, whether it is preservation-based, or it is industrially based, or it is economically boosting. It's just a place of taking pictures.
Wow.
And I wonder if maybe I'm wrong, those of you in SADC, with all
we're trying to get them to the podcast to explain
with all protocols observed, and they must not come and talk in English. When they come, you just say, take us to a project that we have done. Don't tell us SADC. No.
Some vision, what.
Take us to your bank. Take us to your bank. If I was SADC right now, I would be producing weapons under SADC. With South Africa as the champion there, said allow us to start producing our own. South Africa is spending billions. Zimbabwe is spending billions. Botswana is spending billions. On what? On weapons. Why not take all this money?
Stuff comes from
Why not take all this money, put it into Denali in South Africa, and produce your own weapons and protect yourselves against each other? And it sounds funnier. Because ultimately you may discover that there's no need to fight each other.
Let's use this because you're all eating.
Yes.
You're all eating.
The gun you have, I also have it. So why shoot each other, you know? So maybe even if it would mean agricultural.
I mean, water, sharing water. And
if it could mean stock exchange. But I don't even know what that thing is all about. They changed the spelling from SADC to SADC. I can't account.
So in conclusion, talking about the African, I call it maybe the little revolution has started, looking at Traore, looking at the other two nations there, Niger and so forth. I don't know Ruto in Kenya, what he's playing. I like what the Namibian lady is also doing. There is the renaissance seems to have. It's moving. I mean, I don't know whether it will be achieved in our generation. That's what I'm because, like you said, the forces that are working against it, I think they'll come now with the. I don't know.
And for the final kick, and they know if they lose this time.
If like France in West Africa, it's fighting back, isn't it?
To give you a more global picture, you start a war in Ukraine, which messes up the food. Ukraine was a breadbasket of Europe. You messed up. You start a war there. America is a criminal. Food is not coming. Then they must buy wheat from America. So it's business for America. The war in. Then you go for the Nord Stream. You bomb the fuel supply from Russia. Okay, we hear you. Then you come to Iraq. You start a war. You go to Venezuela. You make another blockage. You come to Iran, you make another blockage. Ultimately, France in particular. Then the coming up of Traore, the uranium is cut, food is cut, oil is cut, and oil again is cut. Strait of Amusi is closed. Now you begin to see France now acting in a paranoia way because they have for the longest of time lived on a leeching parasite economy. And when the Sahel state and other French-speaking states are beginning to break away from France, no longer putting their deposits in the French banks and then getting it back. Imagine you put your money in France bank. When you get it back, it's a loan. See how France has been making money? Yeah. Your own money. You take your budget as a country to say, keep our money for us. When you want your money to come and pay your workers, it's a loan to you. It's no longer your money. It has become our money. France has been running that, and when the umbilical cords are starting to be chopped off, Macron is almost losing his head. He wants to resign. He wants to run away. Now he says he's done enough. But it's true. The model is not sustainable. But if I was France, I would have been looking at how do you repair what you have destroyed, rather than in Mali. He was there 3 days ago, bombing Mali with his mercenaries, trying to kill the young man who is in power now. And I think it's in Madagascar, same thing again, and Burkina Faso, almost 15, 20 assassinations attempts. And I think it's becoming desperate. But it's not going to win, because this time around, we're not going to be giving it on a plate. With Africa is coming up together, and I think people like yourselves and many other young people, we need to start talking local politics, and then we raise our voices higher to regional politics. Ultimately, we need to start championing what I might call African politics, where in our own way, I want to challenge your station. Come up with your barometer of the leaders that you want for Africa and package them and start populating that calendar with the leaders and the quality that you want. Where there is an empty spot, put the qualifications that are needed. We need a Minister of Finance for Africa. Who is the best financial person in Africa? Not the richest person. Who can actually, and find him, put him there. Who could be the best for sports? Who could be the best for culture and tourism? Who could be the best? And maybe this dream you're talking about, no one has seen it yet. I'm also looking for that fire. But maybe the day we all see that fire, we see that timetable, we see that catalog, we may actually start having a dream which we can sell, which many other people can sell. And the revolution does not announce. And once the people are ready, they will move themselves.
But you'd agree that now, and I like what you said, it's in pockets. We have a Traore, you have this one. The revolution has not really, and I wanted to go to the soft issues now of, let's call it the revolution. From my understanding, as an example, visiting Macron again, the French, when you go to Cote d'Ivoire and Benin, they speak French. Apparently, some of them have even lost their own indigenous languages. Apparently, from the reading and commentary, Southern Africa, a bit better. We can still speak our indigenous languages, but we still, like you said, we're speaking English now. Our kids can't speak our own indigenous languages anymore. In Botswana is very notorious. South Africa is very notorious. And I'm just trying to visit sometimes it starts with the education and the younger people and how we are infusing the Africanness, if for lack of a better word, because that will make it a lot more sustainable in the future. So what do you think what we are doing? Because the president can do things, but if the masses and the education is feeding the old system, the curricula that is very Western, education. Our curricula in Botswana and what is still, we're joking about teaching Tsao of what. A lot of people don't know the history of Botswana or Southern Africa, but they can recite the Boston Tea Party of 1773. So how do you see those foundations as well? Like I said, on the softer side of feeding this journey.
I met up with Matlhonolo.
Matlhonolo Mpona, yes.
The guy from professor from South Africa, who wrote a mathematics book in Sesotho. The first book, mathematics book in Sesotho. I have the book.
It's called Matlhonolo.
What's his name? And Professor, he passed away.
Okay.
But I have his book somewhere there. I walk into Kenya and Tanzania and I find science books that are written in Kiswahili. And the pass rates, they are crazy in technical subjects. Because if a nation can read and count, if they can read, then what more do you want? They already have the software of counting. What's now lacking are professional academicians who can now translate that. Is it not painful for you to discover that the most written book in Setswana is the Bible?
Yeah.
Almost every house
painful
has a Setswana Bible. Had those been engineering, mathematics, physics books in that abundance.
And we're still translating into many other indigenous, and it's big celebrations and the contra and everything when it's been translated into some local,
And maybe that's the weakness of the mind. That why is it so important for the system to make sure that we have as many Bibles but as little engineering as possible? And then we wonder, why are we not developing when in fact we invest ourselves and our effort into the very things that make us not to be able to develop ourselves. So we are touching a very important element which speaks to curriculum development. We don't have to apologize. We are in power now as black people. So who do we still blame for Bantu education in our universities and in our primary, high schools and etc.? Who do you blame? To still teach your children William Shakespeare in 2026. So maybe it goes to say again, the custodians of the system who have been taught that for you to be proliferated as educated, you need to have attained these standards, these unit standards. You need to have memorized these wars. You need to have memorized these poems. You need to know the dates of Hitler's birth and his death. Then you are called educated. Well, maybe that curriculum is expired also. We needed to go back and find out where we lose our children. This speaks to entertainment. What quality of entertainment and education is on our TVs and on our radios. Even now, with our softwares and our cell phones and etc., we have no excuse. We can translate. We can infiltrate these systems with our language, with our games, and create for ourselves platforms which can become very educational for our children. So we miss that gap of when you get educated to adapt your education to where you are coming from, so that you become a bridge of interpreting. I mean, I've done theology. If you want to enjoy me at my best, ask me to say, when you look at the Bible, where do you see the African in the Bible? What is the bridge between African culture and the Bible culture? Then I'll show you a man who was told to marry another man's wife who had passed away, and God says, please go and sleep with your late brother's wife. Continue the generation. I see polygamists sitting over there. I see people collecting herbs over there. I see Jesus picking dust and putting in people's eyes and opening up. I see people sitting in the Egyptian pyramids and learning, and this is all our history. This is our history. And if you find people that know how to pay lobola, Abraham says, take my stuff, go and pay lobola for my daughter-in-law there.
Abraham.
Yeah. Then you can say, this culture are the owners of the text. But that takes knowledge of understanding both the culture and the biblical text. Then you're able to build the bridge of understanding between the two. And I wish mathematicians could do the same. I wish doctors could do the same. Our mothers never used to get their stomachs cut. No matter how difficult. The death rate of midwifery and child delivery was very low.
Really?
Oh, no, in the ancient times. It's a fact. In modern times now, the anesthetic what?
The anesthetics, the use of anesthetics,
The doctor is here, the gynecologist is here, and mothers are still dying, and stomachs are being cut, children are dying. And you wonder, which part of civilization is this? Is pregnancy becoming a sickness now? Cows and goats deliver every day in the bush. What are they eating? How are they living so that they can deliver nicely? Where are our doctors who, instead of rushing into cesarean section of the West, can go to the indigenous knowledge and medicines of the past and be able to bring up a good diet? No, when you are pregnant, you must eat more okra. You must eat more so that you are able to oil your things and make it more softer. These dyes are not acceptable. Stay in a warm room. Please put a big cloth around the womb. Keep your womb warm so that your child does not shrink and cold and breach and all. That knowledge is sitting with some old grandmother somewhere. And where are the doctors that can, after you get your small little PhD, PCF, whatever you call it, gynecology specialist, and say, okay, I've received a piece of paper, but there's something I don't know about my people. And you can walk down from your echelons of self-importance and go back into primitive knowledge and scoop that knowledge. Now come to your desk. This is what academia says. This is what tradition says. And in yourself, you can be able to come up with a hybrid form of medicine where when the patient comes to you, you can say, do you want to deliver the natural way or do you want to deliver the academic way? And people can begin to make choices. Like China. When you get there, do you want indigenous medicines or do you want
going to a standard hospital?
Yes. Do you want plastic or do you want organic? I went there. I was there. There are pharmacists are in 2 sections. Organic, indigenous, and plastic. You choose what you want. Aspirin here. This is the root, which is the same element with this one here. For flu, this is the herb package here. This is the Vicks, those, and they're doing it so seamlessly within. So for you to be a pharmacist in China, you're not just a pharmacist. You need to know both worlds. And I think Africa, we are 10 times bigger than China. All these bushes that are around us, our pharmacologists must come up with better solutions of how do we bridge that knowledge gap. And I'm only mentioning pharmacists, agriculture, mineralogy. We're mining men way before these rascals came here. But where is that knowledge? Architecture is what I'm saying, the Bushmen, all these paintings and etc. Where are the scholars who can build bridges of knowledge between these colonial technologies and our indigenous technologies? You walk up to the river in the evenings, in the summers of African continent, and you look at the birds making their nests, and the old people can tell you, we're going to have a drought this year. And they go back and they look, we're going to have lots of rain this year. Why? Because there are birds that go to the river there, when their nests are too low, closer to the water, we're going to have a drought that year. And the rain has not yet fallen. When the nests are way up in the sky, they're telling you we're going to have lots of floods. How do those birds know whether there's going to be flood or there will be a drought? And by observing these birds, you know how to do and how to do your agriculture. Now that knowledge, who amongst us, who are geologists and who are not geologists, we not call them this, who do weather patterns?
Yeah, meteorologists.
Meteorologists. Where are you? Busy telling us in guest thumb sucking. According to the satellite, we're going to have some good rains next year. You're lying, man. Go to the river.
But I don't think you are saying we should. Are you necessarily saying we should slow down with science or come up with a balance of the two? That we've left our indigenous knowledge way down and then promoted and supported this. We just need to do a balance. Are you not saying we should abandon?
Well, I'm actually enjoying myself because I'm looking at how old is this knowledge that we're leaving behind. How many thousands of years has it taken us to accumulate this knowledge with our ancestors? And it is organic, and it is indigenous, and it is applicable to the ground that we are in. These are the knowledge, in as much as it looks fast and furious and easy to implement, it is still fairly new. We are still now discovering the side effects of Ambi. When our sisters' cheeks started looking like maps of Africa. Only another 5-10 years from now will we know the effects of COVID and vaccination of putting heavy metals into people's bloodstreams. Only few years from now will we discover the side effects of contraception and these tablets, and they've started coming out. Women are now having their limbs cut off, blisters and etc. And they were asked, there's no sickness anyway. But the bodies, because of the toxins and etc., they've been pumping into their bodies for 5-10 years. Obesity, you find mothers that have hanging hands, hanging bellies and etc. But they're trying to eat well. But that thing that was shot into them, it's messing up their hormones. And their bodies are now beginning to react only now. If we were to do research right now, I could almost tell you a good percentages of female health is caused by those type of contraceptions. What happened to our old ladies? When you start bleeding, put your red bead here, 2, 3. On the 7th one, it's thinning up. Orange, 1, 2, 3, 7. It has stopped. Put the white ones, 1, 2, 3, 7. It has now put the green ones, 1, 2, 3. Your first 28 days is right there. There's your entire hospital. There's your entire family planning. And if we can begin to discuss polygamy from here, it makes sense. Because a woman only needs a man on the white and on the green. And she decides if she wants to get pregnant or she does not want to get pregnant. I'm not saying this is all thorough, but this is what all people used to do. Now, who amongst us can go back and study this science? And we can reintroduce it to our children without pastors saying, our children are now becoming demonic.
Was Satan.
That's why I always say, if that's even tradition, shut up. Keep quiet.
Yeah, no, my brother. Let's talk about and you correct me, you are a huge critic of Christianity, which comes a bit odd because you were ordained and you read theology, you were immersed. You just told me earlier, no, lemo seventh day, musabata. So, and I'm saying this because, the Pope was just in North Africa recently, and I was just picking up quite interesting stats. But actually the level, the rate at which Catholicism is increasing in Africa is still on the high. People are still going, which is bizarre because in Europe, the churches are getting emptier. But in Africa, it's the other way around. Do you want to just take us through your view on that?
The danger of Christianity, it is that it has assumed the role of identity. And because our grandmothers and grandfathers were in it, we're people of continuity, naturally, as Africans. So most likely, if your grandfather or grandmother was involved in something, you would find it very difficult to walk away. So their clothes are very important. Their lifestyle and whatever other emblems that they leave become very important. So as population is growing, and the grand matriarch here is Catholic or is whatever, it is very easy to have the African migrate towards what they might call their family faith.
Yeah.
And so the Pope is very strategic in terms of rekindling and reigniting the African interests, because that's where the strongholds are going to be, Africa and Brazil and Latin America. And the Christian conversation becomes a bit more complex because the obsession with eschatological, futuristic second coming of Jesus seems to overshadow development and dreams and visions. When you ask them what's happening, that Jesus is coming. When? Soon. How soon? Soon and very soon. Okay, when someone has that mindset, the question is, can they do long-term planning? Can they invest when they actually know that Jesus is coming soon? We've had few waves where in the 1990s and in 1844, where pronouncements were made, even 2000, where the hype came back again, that Jesus is coming. People sold their farms. People removed their children from school. People stopped doing everything else because they were waiting for the second coming of Jesus. And unfortunately, he did not come. Even a few months ago, there was this rapture thing that was burning through the media. So the whole theology, when it makes you so much heavenly minded and of no earthly good, I think theology can become a danger to development, because then it puts everything into the future and subtracts you in the present, where you begin to trust God for everything. But the same Bible says, occupy till I come. I made you so that you can be heads and not tails. And what is in the head? So that you can see, you can hear, you can taste, you can smell. That's where the senses are. And that's where God has put us. So why are Christians busy sitting at the back, in the outlet of whatever is happening in the front? So I don't think you even read this Bible correctly. Because if in the Garden of Eden, I've given you this, work in it. Develop it. Was that commandment only given to white people? And black people must always be sitting with the ball in hand, walking around and begging, as it were. And everyone acts, will even say God has placed all of us on the face of the earth so that all of us, we can look for him, though he is not far away from any one of us. Therefore, this God that works with tourism, you need a passport to go and see God there. He comes over here to talk to. So my understanding started moving a little bit into social gospel, and then going through the text, finding African culture in it.
What does social gospel mean?
Responding positively to social issues and social ills.
Okay.
Yes, be it poverty, be it war, be it liberation theology, all the structures of hermeneutical explanation, particularly to social implementation.
Okay.
And then African culture in the Bible then pushed me over the margins. By the time I did mysticism, the Buddhism, Hare Krishnas, and etc., and find that stories of immaculate conceptions started happening 4,000 or 5,000 years ago, before even the arrival of Christianity. These stories have been there. And so what is so particular and peculiar, and then Genesis threw me into the dustbin. Genesis, when Cain killed his brother, and God says, you've been condemned. Cain says, please, if you leave me to go, they will kill me. That word is the one that confused me. They will kill me. And I said, who are the they? Because what we know is Adam, Eve, Cain, and Abel. And Cain says in Genesis 4, they will kill me. And he went out of the garden in chapter 4, and he got married. Outside of the garden. To who? And his uncle Enos gets married to 2 wives outside of the garden. Then we begin to look at this thing and say, is it possible that the creation story of Genesis is actually God creating for himself a peculiar nation, but surrounding them are actually other nations that are in existence?
Who wrote Genesis?
Oh, it says Moses who wrote it, but Moses was not yet born. Moses is only born sometime in Exodus there, a few couple of hundreds of years later. And actually Moses did not write it. It was a recitation from Midian. Midian, who is the son of Keturah. Keturah, who is the wife of Abraham after the death of Sarai. So when Moses killed his brother and he went to Midian, then he sat down with Midian, and Midian then, because Moses was already a pagan coming from Egypt. He did not know anything. So the first time he heard, in the beginning, this was the traditional oral tradition from Abraham. Then Jethro teaches Abraham, and Jethro is the father of Zipporah, who is the wife. So you begin to connect all these pieces together. So the Bible was actually written right here in Africa, right here, recited from amongst ourselves. But again, to know that Egypt becomes older than the Jews. Our civilization was way ahead. By the time the Jews came, were in establishment. Because the great Zimbabwe was already standing. Mapunga was standing. Dombo Shava, here in Masunga here, was standing before the Jews stood up in Jerusalem. Mapunga, Nzalo Yelanga. When we come around and we allow young people who have no knowledge of history to tell us where.
Was it through your immersion into Christianity and theology and the broader reading of understanding African culture and all that, was it part of the turmoil in your head that led you to rethink?
It is still happening. It is still happening. Sometimes I see it through the biblical text. Sometimes I see it outside of the biblical text. But the scriptures themselves have remained somewhere in the center of my conversation. I'm still trying to find the thread that connects this, because there seems to be a disjoint. It's either you must be this or that.
Yeah.
But the white man is this and that. And I'm wondering why it is so passionate for the African to say you can either do Christianity, don't do culture. But the same one who's saying don't do culture, but why you want Mahadi?
You don't believe in this,
But we go to a funeral if you want to see a real African. Then all of a sudden, the whole Christianity thing is through the window. But you don't need to have that schizophrenic 2 minds. I am there and there. These things are all connected. Here is Mary and Martha going to the grave on a Sunday to go and embalm and put oil on the body of a dead person. This is culture. On Jesus yourself, the same Jesus you talk about. Here are women who are going to do what is culturally acceptable in their own culture, in the New Testament. And you come around and say, hey, the dead man knows nothing. But it is being practiced right here. If a man dies and his wife has no husband, and God says, you as a remaining brother, marry your brother's wife, so that his children cannot be brought up by a stranger, and you leave the woman to become a prostitute on the streets. What is she going to do? 4 children later, and the brother dies. We're now mocking king. So who's going to look after those children? From somewhere else, different surname, must come and look after your own children. Then you talk about abuse, because that man is going to sleep with your children now. And history in the Bible has lived here longer. These dynamics have been discussed, have been argued, and solutions have been found, even recorded in the biblical text. Now bring a Christian and ask them to implement that. They become prayer warriors.
Yeah. But I want you to simplify it because your, I don't know if I can call them teachings, or your around the Christianity, and it's especially young people. The older generation, as you said, they've been orientated, and they're not moving.
Yeah.
Because as you said, it's become a culture. And the younger people who are questioning in a state of almost chaos. They don't know what to believe. They listen to you. The next thing, a pastor comes to the house with the mother, and they're like, what? I mean, you said Jesus walked on water. What I'm saying is it's genuine confusion, because they said, I've done science. There's nobody who can walk on water. And I want you to, for that confused young man in Africa, and I said this, and we discussed it earlier, how spirituality is so important to a people and a nation. The West have Jerusalem, that was their moral compass. The Chinese and so on, they had Buddha. Everybody had their own. And with Africa, we had our own. And with colonization, that was disrupted and changed and almost severed. So I just want you to talk to, because we listened to you and we're like, how do you help the confused? And I'm saying this genuinely because that's part of social chaos or corrosion at the moment, because people don't know where the African true north is.
For a student, I don't want to throw big stones and then confuse the young people more. That's I would want to start off maybe by putting a bridge, which I might want to call an intelligent, intellectual bridge between Christianity and culture. And I want to recommend the book of Genesis chapter 1. The difference between Maponga J's teaching and the gospel according to Maponga J and the gospel according to the pastors in your churches, it's vast.
The difference is vast.
Because the pastors in the church are telling you, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth was formless and void, and the Spirit of the Lord hovered above the many waters, and God said, let there be light, and there was light. So let there be light. And it's done. You must know that God created the heavens and the earth. Do you believe that now? Yes, I baptize you. In my gospel, it's different. I start with Genesis 1 verse 0. There is someone who stands in the dark and has a plan for what he's going to do. Deal also with yourself, standing in dark moments, and plan what you're going to do. You become the author of the book of Genesis yourself. The creation of the world becomes the creation of your world. How do you deal with your darkness? How do you deal with your waters? What are your waters? What is underneath your waters? How do you separate your waters so that your land can come up? How do you now secure this piece of land so that you can plant on it? What kind of trees and plants, strategies can you put in place so that you can have an environment that is habitable? What kind of animals? What sort of wife are you going to marry on the 6th day? And what is your resting pattern? So then you look at the whole Genesis as a model of how do I feel. I've just finished writing a book, actually, which I think will be very intelligent. It's coming up shortly, 13 Principles of Unlimited Possibilities, where I've soaked my head into building that bridge as a model of initial thinking. So that once you get Genesis 1 verse 1 correctly, that I am the one who must speak things that are not yet to be. And the whole book of Genesis has to do with me constructing, building my life into the Eden that I want it to be. Then from there, I cannot hold you. What kind of commandments can you put into this garden? That's Exodus. What kind of wars are you going to be fighting in this garden? That's your Kings. What kind of songs are you going to be singing in this garden? That's Psalms. What kind of wisdom do you need in the garden? That's Proverbs. What kind of reincarnation? That's
So you don't have to abandon everything.
I'm saying for the younger students.
Because it's and I see there's a lot of maybe in South Africa, I don't know, you know, Bishop and Evan. They're all now critiquing Christianity. There's a whole army of disciples of Maponga. So you can't strawberry a situation and not help to preach. It's cheering on almost being irresponsible.
I'm trying, and I think by the end of by July, my birthday month, I should have that book available. I would love to come back and launch it here.
Please, yes.
And we can have that maybe
discussion
colloquium
detail
around. I learned a new.
You learned some English today.
I knew colloquial.
Not
colloquium now.
No, that's good because I wanted to end there because I'm quite serious about I'm trying to find the right English where there is this. Also, it's also done by, and as we go into geopolitics, it's done by for instance the right wing in the States. The way it's anchored on God and Christianity, and the young man or young woman here is like, why am I associated? Why is he saying this is that the same God as mine? The way he's behaving.
The behavior of the West has actually proved that the Bible is not right. Because how can you be the right wing that believes in God, yet you are the most fighting, most killing, most destructive? So what kind of God is that? Who tells you to destroy everybody else? And you say you're the right wing, but you're fundamentalists. But in your fundamentalism, you are the worst of all military generals who are butchering the whole world over. Then how good is your religion if it can change you?
Let's end on the geopolitics. Now that you're talking about the current chaos around the world and the petrol prices. I was on a call yesterday with some people in Kenya saying the prices there, actually they got shortage. We were saying we went to a filling station, there's a shortage. So we have this very chaotic situation around the globe through with the Iran war, the Lebanon war, and how do you want us as Africans to interpret that, and how do we prepare, because it might not be the last?
The Abrahamic faiths will include Judaism and Hebrew faith, will include Islam, will include Christianity. They all have their genesis in Abraham. One then has Torah, one has the Bible, one has the Quran. One has Jesus, one has Muhammad, one has Yahweh on the other side. These three religions, ladies and gentlemen, they all have an obsession with takeover and ultimately being the only religions on the face of the earth. Christians believe that when the whole world falls under Jesus, every knee shall bow, every tongue confess that Jesus Christ is Lord and is King. It creates for them a panacea where they want to drive towards. And America wants to be in the forefront of that. We've seen that in Nigeria. Even we want to protect the rights of Christianity in those areas. So it's clear. The agenda items are clear. And Christianity believes that once it takes over the whole world, then the Messiah will appear. And then it will be new living altogether. While they're planning that, Islam also thinks, if we can bring the whole world under the rule of the Sharia law, Muhammad, and we clean the world of drunkenness, prostitution, and what, and we create an Islamic world, then the world will be a peaceful place for everybody. While they're busy dreaming and going to war to create that new world, Boko Haram, ISIS, Saudi Arabia, and etc. That's the agenda of the jihadists. While they're busy dreaming, then Hebrews come, the Israelis. We believe in Yahweh. And we believe that God has given us from the mouth of the Nile, that is in Uganda, to the ends of the Euphrates, that is in Turkey. You follow? This whole region here must fall under Israel. And then, according to the Bible, the Israel will grow. The redeemed of the Lord shall return. All nations shall come and fall at the feet of this God, Yahweh. Then if these three religions, one source, three books, one devil.
You honestly believe that?
I'm giving it to you as it is. So ultimately at the bottom of this, the question is, which God is superior to the other? And having said that, when your gods are fighting, then why are you killing each other as human beings? Why not just close God, Yahweh, and Allah in one room? And they can fight themselves there. And whoever comes out will listen to him. Why are human beings fighting battles that belong to God? The international politics, in as much as we want to look at through the geopolitical hand, through the economic world, but when you begin to hear them talking, when you begin to hear the Netanyahu's talking, that these Palestinians are less than animals, they must be killed because even their children are going to become terrorists also. This world was given to us. We don't fall under the jurisdiction of the Bible. We are above the Bible. We are the chosen and the remnant, and no one can tell us anything. Then you begin to understand how they look at you as a black person, how they look at the Palestinians, how they look at the Iranians. And similarly so, when the Allah Akbar, when the Islam man comes, Allah Akbar, nothing can stand on their way. They also want it their way. And Christianity now through America, they think that they are doing God a favor by killing all those who refuse to obey to this. So there is a religious, spiritual element to global politics. There is also an economic policy, but economics is a servant of spirituality. Because ultimately, when you are economically well, who do you tell, which God do you tell to celebrate your success? So I believe this multi-layered way of controlling the world, of course, the New World Order also comes into play as they're trying to marshal into a cashless society, the branding of people, the chipping of people. It's now a big debate. We're not talking about it, but lots is happening. The Epstein files have brought in other scary files that you can notice there, that even in the MNRs and these injections that Epstein put his DNA in some of those things. So maybe with more Epstein people...
Don't even go there.
It's appalling stuff. Yeah. These nanoscience and nanotechnologies that are coming in. So we are fighting on various levels. We are fighting with physical, we're fighting in diet, we're fighting with medicines that are being injected, we're fighting politically. And while the world is fighting, Africa, please plant food and be as organic as possible. Don't run ahead and get excited about everything that is coming from the West. Hey, let's be careful a little bit. Let's slow down. And hence I'm saying maybe the Koisan could be some of our solutions to some of these problems. Let's start going back there and pick up some solutions of how they used to do it in the past. Maybe we could preserve ourselves.
Because I'm thinking as you are articulating this, about the motivations of global religious
politics
sects, yeah. And here I'm thinking of, for instance, you have, there is a young man in Masunga with his Bible going, and the preacher is talking about goodies and he's feeling good and goes home. Similarly in Mutari, in Masehu, very simple African people, and they almost scary picture that they just painted. I mean, what do you think they should do? I don't even know. You know what I mean? I mean, they're sitting there, they go home, they just had their church service, and the preacher just, religion consoles. Even from research, religion, spirituality, it's a big component of happiness. People who do that are happier than those that are irreligious. So it's a very important component. But how do I think about those very simple people going on their life with their grandmothers, well-used Bible, actually.
And they're happy there. Luke 2 verse 52 will then say Jesus grew in body, in mind, in love, in harmony with God and with men. So we have a 4-dimensional growth, which is consistently mentioned, that even the young people themselves must consider that their growth must not just be on social piety, social easiness. There must be a mental development. There must be physical development. There must be social intelligence and a spiritual growth. And ultimately, the very book that they are holding, it also says, in the last days, knowledge shall increase. The love of many shall wax cold. So in the increment of knowledge, the question is, where are you going to fall in the, are you going to fall in the trap of ignorance when there's so much knowledge that is coming up? And that knowledge, when it comes up, what does it mean for the simple-minded? And by the simple-minded, oh, shame. They are the firewood in the day of trouble. They are the first casualties of war. Because in the midst of their ignorance, they will not be defended against their own ignorance. They will be burned on the stakes because of ignorance. And God says in Psalms, worship God with understanding, in truth and in spirit, as John would later on highlight. Those who worship Him must worship Me in truth. And what is truth? What is not? What is fact? So do we want people to worship out of ignorance, or do we want them to worship out of knowledge? And if we knew what knowledge that I now know, maybe I can make a declaration on your show for the first time. When you hear that He's over there, don't go. Mark that verse. The other one says, for the kingdom of heaven is in you. Mark that verse. Then the other one says, your bodies are the temples of the Holy Spirit. Mark that verse. And the other one says, I don't dwell in houses that are built by men. Mark that verse. Then who are you? You are the venue in which that which you have been told is outside is in residence over here. Don't go there, looking for that which He has actually said it is in you. Then Psalm 82 closes it up. Know ye not that you are gods, but because you don't know this simple fact, you're going to die like common men. What more can I tell you?